Welcome everybody to another pick a card reading. Today's pick a card reading is all about what's up with this relationship, what's going on. Now I think the greater majority of people who come to this reading will be coming about a romantic relationship, a significant other, but some may be coming about other types of relationships. So where that looks relevant and the cards seem to suggest that could be going on, I'll also touch upon that. But I do think, as I say, the greater majority is going to be about romance relationships. Hopefully that is what you're looking for, and as I say, I will try and cover other things as well. As with all readings, the most important thing is to tune into the deck that most draws to you. To help with that, on pile 1 I have a jade crystal, on pile 2 there's a clear quartz, and on pile 3 there's an amethyst crystal. You may get called to more than one pile. It might be that there's more than one relationship that you want to look into, and if that's the case, by all means look at more than one reading. The important thing is to look at the ones that draw to you. So if you already know which one or ones that is, then go to the timestamps in the description box below. If you're not sure, pause the video and meditate on it until you feel that connection, and then when you do know which reading or readings you want to go to, I'll see you there. Welcome, pile 1, to your reading. So the structure of this reading is, here will be the significant other or other person, here is you in relation to the relationship, and then we will be looking at the alchemy of the two together at the moment. I've started the reading with cards from the Fairy Tale Oracle because I believe that fairy tales are very deep programming within us, and there's a lot of commonality between stories across cultures. So even if you're not familiar with one of the stories, you'll be familiar with the kind of underpinning and the morality tale that's there and so forth. And these things very much influence how we view ourselves and what we look for most, particularly in love relationships, but in general. And these two cards could be about both love or about something more general, which you'll understand as I go through it. So for the other person here, and in most cases your significant other, the card that's come up is Gretel. So Gretel is obviously a character in Hansel and Gretel, and this card talks about near the end of the story when she tricks the witch to go into the oven rather than herself, and thereby saves her brother and herself from the witch at the end. She uses her ingenuity and she uses great courage. So this suggests that for the other person, courage is a really important quality. They want, and their ingenuity, their capacity to solve problems is very important to them, and their capacity to be courageous against odds. And it's a very good omen that whatever is going on that might be a bit of a barrier, an obstacle, and there does feel like there is a bit of a barrier or obstacle in these two cards together, is something that they can overcome. They want to be the person who is the hero or heroine of the day. They want to be able to go into the dark and deal with it and manage to find a way out and problem solve. So this suggests there's an issue that's being dealt with. And when we look at the fairy tale that governs you and your preferences and your response to this, we have one called Verde Prato. Excuse me. And this is one which is about a secret love affair. So the two parties are kept apart and have to meet in secret, and there's a lot of people with opinions about it who want to tell them what to do and possibly to betray them in some way. Now again, the ending is a happy ending, and so the card suggests that you will find the way to be able to have the relationship that you want to have, but it does suggest that there's a lot of interference around it, whether it's other people or whether it's circumstances in some way. There is something difficult about this, difficult to bring it into being. And I think that's why there's courage over here, and there's also ingenuity and commitment over here. So the energies that are coming to this, I think, are very positive. They suggest that your other person has the courage to deal with whatever's going on, and that you have the commitment to stick at it to see what happens. If this isn't about a love relationship, it's about some other connection, a work partnership, a friendship or something where there are other factors that are trying to influence it and keep you apart. But again, the courage on one side and the commitment on the other seem to be balancing well. So let's have a look at what what is going on for your other person and then for you. And then, as I say, we'll have a look at the combined energies. So firstly, for the other person. Let's move these so that you can see them all. Okay, so firstly, we have the Six of Pentacles reversed and the Queen of Keys, which is the Queen of Swords reversed. That suggests that there is definitely someone in the midst of this, and I think it's coming up as the Queen of Keys, which is the Queen of Swords, as I said, who doesn't necessarily approve of this connection in some way, or who is highly critical about it, critical of you, critical of this person. So it could be someone connected to you that's critical of your person. It could be someone around your person that's critical of the connection. And it looks as though they've had some control over material resources in some way. So it could be a family member, it could be someone that your significant other is working with, but there's been a sort of a control mechanism. And it's not a control mechanism about emotion, it's a control mechanism in another way to try and dissuade something. So it's literally like the Queen of Keys is coming up like the Wicked Witch in the Hansel and Gretel story. There is somebody who is negative around this. It could be a parent, it could be a workmate, it could be anything, but there seems to be some authority figure around it. And it has had some impact on that natural courage that your other person has. They are a little bit wary about when and how to step forward. They're trying to work out the best way to communicate that doesn't trigger any of that energy. For some, this could be around a relationship that's in the workplace, and maybe the workplace doesn't approve of relationships. So it might be trying to work out how to have the relationship without and communicate with you without that being seen, or even to look for new opportunities. But that's not immediately on the radar at the moment. There's some sort of reluctance. There's also a bit of getting of wisdom about this. I think whatever this scenario is, the innocence that maybe your other person took to just be courageous and just go for what you want has been rocked by this to some degree. But I do feel like it's external. I don't feel like they're doubting you. I think that there's external issues on this in some way. So let's have a look at yours. Okay. So again, I get this sense of an external thing. This is suggesting that it's hard for you to bring this to completion, to bring it into being. And what I mean by completion is to bring it into being. I don't mean ending it. It's that the universe reverse suggests that bringing this fully into what it could be is being blocked in some way. And it's blocking the joy that you could have around it as well too. That's why it's asking for your commitment, because it's still not able to fully form for some reason. But you definitely have a sense of a similar sort of soul connection with this person and an emotional one. There's sort of like around the sort of soul and ideas and vision and emotional energy, there is something really good between you. The other thing that's interesting with the King of Elixirs coming up is one of the things that the character does in this to show her commitment is she heals the wounds of the other person. And the King of Elixirs is like the King of Cups, and the King of Cups has an energy that is like a healer. And sometimes it's a bit like Chiron, the wounded healer, where it's easier to heal the wounds of others than to heal your own wounds. So you are definitely, in a sense, keeping the home fires burning there with the Three of Wands and healing this person in a way. So it has that feeling of like there's just a battle that you're in with something external so that you can be together, or so that you can work together, or whatever, or, you know, if it's in a family, if there's all sorts of rivalries going on in the family and people getting in the way of the good connection, you help each other, you heal this person, and this person shows the courage to make you feel, yes, we are connected, no matter what's going on, we are connected. But you're definitely dealing with something that's impacting this. And if it's not obvious, then something's going on behind the scenes. And if you're thinking, I don't understand, this person seems to be interested, but they don't seem to really come forward, and they seem like the sort of person who would, why aren't they? Why can't I bring this into being? Something else is going on, pile one. So let's have a look at the alchemy of the two of you together at the moment. So you've already decided, both of you, whether you've communicated to each other or not. I suspect you probably have. A lot of this has to be behind the scenes, but you've already communicated your kind of philosophical commitment to each other. You have not yet been able to ground it and make it and bring it into being in the material world. But there is a freedom energy coming. Whatever this is, there is a freedom energy coming. There is a real sense behind this that the universe, that spirit wants the two of you to be able to make this connection because you're so nicely matched. It's like the warrior from ancient times and the healer from ancient times and how they help each other. So as I say, even if it isn't a love relationship, though I think with most of you it is, there is such a beautiful complement of your energies, but there's just something in the way. So let's look at some oracles around this for you. Let's start with a classic love oracle, just to sort of have one card for you, one card for the other person, and one card for the alchemy of it at the moment, and spirit's advice. Okay, so let me just quickly look at that to make sure I'm reading it the right way. Yes, I am. It's upside down. It's a little bit hard to read, Pawan. So I think for many of you, there's a family issue involved in this because families come up and it's reversed. So I think there may be sort of different cultures, different expectations, that sort of thing. There's some family energy and it's not working well at the moment. At its best, if you could turn it around, you could have a relationship, was committed and created your own family. But at the moment, that's going on. The trust is between the two of you. That's beautiful. But it's getting in the way of the true love. And this is suggesting that there is true love, but it's just the influence of other people. So pile one, if you don't feel this resonates, you maybe haven't picked the right pile because it's a very clear message. There are other people involved in your situation and they are having an impact whether you know it or not. And so it's very important to stay in that connection of trust between the two of you because there's so much there. So let's ask Spirit for some healing energy between the two of you. You are a natural healer anyway in this, but let's ask for what in the middle, in the way that the two of you can come together that can maybe heal some of that energy for you. Okay, it says help from above. I think that's a dual message, Pile 1. I think partly it's saying that Spirit wants you to be together, and you will find that there are ways, because of these qualities you have and how well they're matched, to bring you together despite this. But I think it's also saying don't expect help from anywhere else. I really think that it's up to the two of you and your connection to Spirit and your connection to each other, because some people, for whatever reason, whether they're jealous or whether they like control over one or other of you, or whether it's, disapproval for some reason, there's something that's blocking this. So I want to ask from another oracle, what is sort of unspoken between the two of you at this point in time? Okay, so it's interesting here. This person who likes to be the solver of everything is asking you, without saying it, tell me how to fix this. So I think that the family issues and that is probably on your side. It's like, how do I become what you need me to be? How do I fix this? I don't think they've done anything to hurt you. I think it's about fixing a problem, and that's part of who they are. And you're saying, well, over here, you don't really need to do anything. You've got me under your spell. I'm really entranced with you. It's something else. And then in the middle of here, I'm waiting for you. You're both waiting. That's an interesting energy as well, too. I think particularly with the help from above, I think what it's saying, Pile 1, is that, as I say, it's not as though there's people who can help you in this world. It's, like tuning into who you are and tuning into each other and into that trust will do it. Because if you just sit and wait for the other person either to heal, like if they're waiting for you to heal the situation and you're waiting for them to be courageous, then there's this lovely energy between you, but nothing's happening. So I think it's, if you are able to communicate with the person, if you aren't really kept separated, it might be saying, look, let's really tune into what's powerful between us, because we can rise above anything if we do tune into that. So I want to finish up with a card from Spirit to show us what signs you should look out for that might help you in bridging this gap and bringing the relationship into what it has a huge potential to be. We've got communication. So communication is obviously on its most literal level, talking with each other, communicating with each other. This will be solved by the two of you together. It's not going to be solved with anybody else's help, apart from to spirit. And this card also talks about receiving information, communication from spirit. You may have a very strong telepathic connection. So it may well be that you can dream about being together, lucid dream, communicate telepathically, really build those bonds, really build them to the degree that you can, because it cuts out the white noise that is around it, and it gives back the courage to this person, and that's you healing them. And then once they have the courage, they can come to you because you feel like that needs to occur. So you do have your work cut out for you, I think, Pile 1, because of other people's interference, but I do think that everything is there and spirit's on your side. This is a very good connection. It's just a matter of bringing it into being and really living into complementary sort of like romantic myths. And I don't mean myths in a bad way. We all have myths, we all have programming, and it is very positive when the two really connect with each other in the way that that does. So I do very much wish you well. I hope that this resonated for you and it gave you some guidance and information that will help you with the relationship. And if so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you have any comments, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Beyond that, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. The structure of this reading is that this will be your significant other or the other person involved. This will be you, and this will be the combined energy between you. I'm using as a starting point the fairy tale oracle because it gives me a sense about the kind of fairy tale mythology programming that we operate in. It gives us a sense about things that we believe on a very fundamental level, or about things that are happening to us that have some form of spiritual or moral development associated with them. And that can give you a very good understanding of some of the dynamics that we'll then explore more with the tarot. So your other person here, this is very interesting, these two together. There's a couple of ways of reading it. So I'll go with the first one, the most basic one. Your other person here is coming up as the Goose Girl. This is a story about a princess who is traveling, and she has certain magical talismans from her mother. But every time she asks her servant to help her, the servant tells her to help herself. And eventually she falls into a river. I won't go into all the details, and loses her magical support, and the servant then steals her identity and goes and lives her life for her until, as will normally happen in fairy tales, the truth comes out. So this is a card that comes up when there's an injustice that's been done, where there could be somebody's identity is being besmirched or stolen, or something wrong is happening. And I don't think it's saying that your significant other is doing that. I think that there is something that has been happening in your significant other's life that has been affecting their reputation, their happiness, the way that people see them, maybe even the way that you see them. And it is likely to be an injustice. I think the question will be whether or not Spirit is saying that you should stick with this and stick through it or not, because you have the Little Mermaid. And I think the Little Mermaid is probably a slightly better known story, which is about a mermaid who sacrifices majorly to live with her love on land. And so this card comes up when you're either called to do a sacrifice or you're considering doing a sacrifice, and it cautions about whether the sacrifice is worth it. So I feel as though in some cases the answer will be yes, that there is a true injustice over here, but you don't necessarily have enough information, I would say, at the moment to be sure about that. It could also be that you are involved with someone who's living into this myth rather than it being the truth. So it may be someone who thinks everything always goes against them, everything is always someone else's fault. So instead of being the Goose Girl, it's more like someone who feels like the Goose Girl. They feel like they're entitled and they should have everything, and if they don't, then somehow they're being denied it unreasonably. So the key question around this, and we'll see what comes out with the rest of the cards, is for you to make the determination whether it is an injustice that you want to connect with this person, whether it's in love or whether it's in friendship or work or however this might be working out, or whether in fact this person is a bit of a drama queen, as they say, somebody who wants to to blame everybody else for something. So it's the authenticity of this mythology, I think, that is key here. So let's have a look at some of the tarot around it. So this will be how the other person is viewing the relationship. This will be how you are, and then we'll look at the alchemy between you. So there's no doubt that this other person has someone around them who is very critical. It could be an aspect of them, and they just may be hypercritical of everybody else. But there feels as though there's someone around them that is very critical of any of their actions, anything that they do, and they feel like they are kind of stuck and they can't move for some reason. They do think that they'll get the idea, they'll have the inspiration to be free and to move out of this scenario. So I do think that for many, there is genuinely an injustice going on. There's something going on in a workplace or around family. There's something where the other person is feeling stuck and criticised and lacking in confidence because of it. But they do underneath have a sense of how they could be clever and become free of that. And this character is clever in the way that she gets back her identity. So I think it is saying that is happening a lot. It is possible with that reverse that is them, and that is sort of like the critique of everybody else and the incapacity to take action. But I think for most, this is suggesting that there is something going on. The question being whether that's going to help your relationship in the longer term because you will be able to help them, or whether it's going to take it offline for a while and whether it comes back. So let's have a look at the energy around you. So, pile 2, you are by nature quite self-sacrificial, I think. You are very strong, and you have a resilience that most people can't even fathom, to be honest. You're a very strong person. You're very strong about your principles. You're very strong about what's right. And you do feel like something wrong is going on here with these 2 princes or knight cards reversed. It does suggest that for some this is about love with the Prince of Elixirs, which is the Prince of Cups, and for some it's about something going on in the workplace, which is the Prince of Talismans or Pentacles. So I think it kind of depends on the scenario here as to whether this is a love relationship we're talking about, or whether you're someone who is used to taking up a cause and you've found a cause, but you're not really sure then why this person isn't acting on being liberated. It almost looks like they feel stuck if that's the case, and you're keeping on with it, but you don't seem to be able to work it. There's something you don't understand about what's going on with them. At its worst, it could be that this person is more hot air than truth, and you're putting all that energy that you have into something that isn't worth it. So there's a real question there for you. Are these 2 princes reversed indications of other people involved that are genuinely hurting this person, and that you can maybe make some form of a sacrifice or connection with to help them because you are really strong? Or are you putting your energy somewhere where the sacrifice is not worth it? So let's have a look at the alchemical energy between the 2 of you. Okay, so I have to say here, I don't want to sugarcoat it, but I have to say that I think that is the key question, and I think in many cases your natural tendency towards supporting others and taking on causes may be ill-directed here, because all 3 of those are reversed. So we have the Princess of Elixirs, so that's like the Page of Cups. So if there's an emotional connection, it's not connecting for some reason. And the Ace of Elixirs, which is the Ace of Cups, it's not connecting. Then we've got Judgment reversed, and that's an incapacity to make the decision that needs to be made. It could be picking up injustice being done, and that's what's stopping it. But I'm not sure here. I mean, I'll see what the Oracle cards say. I'm not sure whether you, for all your strength and ability, are really able to fix the problem if the problem is legitimate. It looks like they have to do it. And if they live into this story, they will work that out. So this may just be a moment in time. But I also think for some of you, something appears to be a scenario that you would want to help out with, or somebody that you love and that you want to protect, but there's something not quite right about it. So let's have a look at an oracle that is about love. Let's see what we get for your person, the alchemy between you and you with that particular question. Okay, so again, we've got respect reversed there. It's like either they are not being respected in the situation that they're in, they are truly being unfairly treated, and the question will be whether or not they can rise out of it so they meet you, because it's Spirit is not saying you can really do anything about this, and sacrificing yourself is not going to help. Any effort that's put into it on that level is not going to return its outcome, or they don't respect others. And this is a lot of histrionics, so it could be either. You could find yourself in a situation finding it hard to forgive either yourself for what you sacrificed, them for what they've required of you if they don't meet their part of it, or the other people around it. There is a possibility with that energy that you've seen something like this before, and so you're almost living into this scenario because you've seen injustice before and you find it hard to forgive injustice. You just want to move forward and fix it. But it's like, I don't think that you can fix it, and I don't think you should be sacrificing. I think you should be waiting. If it's going to be fixed, they will use that energy and work out the way, and that will shift this energy. But it's very much hanging in the balance. So let's have a look at what needs to be healed to shift this energy towards something that could be. So if you're confused about this relationship, there's a good reason to be confused about it, pile 2, I would say. So that's interesting. So it's saying what needs to be done is courage, and courage is the thing that's associated with them. Courage to be able to go forward and to be able to re-establish themselves, to take that action. So you've got bucket loads of it, but it's not your battle. Like, it's either a legitimate battle and it's not your battle, or it's not a legitimate battle, in which case you're putting energy in a place that doesn't give a return. Let's see what would be spoken between the two of you if this could be brought to the surface. So that's interesting. So this says, I wish I could bring myself to talk to you. So that could be saying that the person is going through a lot and they just can't talk about it. And if they can get to that point, then they can fix it. So that's a good sign, I think, pile 2. But it could also be that they're so caught up in their own stuff that they don't communicate. Then we've got you. I let my ego get in the way. Now that's interesting, because if it is saying that you are used to being able to sacrifice and fix things and knowing that you're strong, you may be putting that energy in the wrong place. And it might be not so much about love, but about this particular story that you live in, that you think love is about sacrifice. You think love is about showing how unconditional everything is and how unconditional you are. But connecting those two together, the forgiveness reversed and the I let my ego get in the way, it's not about you being egotistical with them. It's maybe about you living too much into this storyline before you know whether it's the right storyline. There's genuinely an attraction between you, because we've got I want this too, but it really is a question about what's happening with your other person. So let's ask for one last card, which is what signs would Spirit potentially send you that will help you know maybe to make that decision eventually. Is this sort of something that can happen? Am I seeing stuff from this other person that will work or not? Clouds. Okay. So that can mean a couple of things. Firstly, it could mean that there are clouds obscuring what you're seeing at the moment, and I think that's true. It could mean that there is some pain or issues to go through before you get to the clarity that you need. It could also be the sort of spiritual messengers are in the clouds, like look to the clouds, look to images in clouds, all of that sort of thing. If you hear songs that talk about clouds or you read things that talk about clouds, then pay attention to what you're feeling, experiencing or thinking at that time, because that may be messages for you. But I do think it says it's cloudy at the moment. Don't act yet. Wait till you see more about what the other party does, and then it'll be clearer to you, the sun will come out, so to speak, about whether or not this person is truly dealing with something and is finding their way through it so they can be with you, or whether this is just someone who's full of drama. So it is a little bit of a heavy reading. I hope it does explain if you are confused about what's going on, the dynamic there. I think it's kind of up in the air. I think for some people who come to this reading it will sort out, and for others it will turn out that this person is a bit of an emotional narcissist, and it's really not going to help you to connect that much with that person, no matter what the initial attraction might be. But time will tell, I think, pile 2. Look for the signs and don't act till you get a clearer idea of who this person is. I hope that was helpful. I hope it resonated. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you do have any thoughts on this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3. This structure that I've laid out this is the other person, this is you, and this is the alchemy of you together. And I'm starting with cards from the Fairy Tale Oracle because I think that fairy tales have an extraordinary mythological and psychological impact on us. The stories that we hear when we're young, their fairy tales tend to be morality tales or cautionary tales, and they can really imbue our sense of love and relationship and really what the world is about at a very young age, and we live into them sometimes unconsciously. So I felt that using these cards I could get a sense about what kind of fairy tale mythology is operating around your other person and around you at the moment, both generally and also in this relationship. So your other person, we have Puss in Boots, and Puss in Boots is basically a story of a boy who inherits a cat, and it seems to be a very humble inheritance compared to others that he could have had. But Puss in Boots the cat is incredibly wise, is effectively a diplomat, a negotiator, an influencer, a guide, and in many ways is a protective energy around the other person to build them up to be all that they can be. It's a very benefic energy, but it sometimes doesn't, it sometimes appears quite humble. It's not necessarily into status itself. It's about trying to raise and build others up. So there's something in your other person who is like that, who is very clever, very charming, very witty, who is first and foremost a wonderful friend and a wonderful guide, and likes to take those roles on in general, and probably particularly with you. So one of the things that could be going on with this is that you could be friends at this point, and you may be wondering if there could be more, or there could be an amazing wit and banter between you. And that's a lot of fun. They could be a bit exhausting at times because they're so clever. Not that you aren't clever, but that's a big part of what they live into. It's a big part of their persona. They may also be drawn into a lot of things that require that kind of ability, whether it's the dramatic arts or politics or something in their work. But they're very focused on seeing you be all that you can be. So that's a lovely energy, but it may be coming across more like a friend at the moment. And the reason I say that is that you've got Red Riding Hood, which is an incredibly evocative fairy story. It is about the coming of age and the coming into passion and desire, and the need to be wary about where we put that desire and who we trust. So I get the sense between this that you want to trust this person, but you're not sure at this stage. And part of it may be that you feel very passionate about the potential connection, but you're not sure how passionate the person is again. And sometimes it feels more like a friendship or more like a guide for you than a relationship. And if you are not in a relationship with them and it is a friendship, then there may be a side of you that is also wanting to look for love somewhere else, but you're very connected to this person because they're very helpful to you. So there could be a bit of confusion around that at the moment. If you are in the relationship, then I think they live a lot in their head and you live a lot in your heart, and there may be a need to find in the alchemy of this the way to bring it together. So let's have a look at the cards around how your other person is looking at the relationship, how you are, and how it operates together. So firstly, I would say for most who've come to this reading, if you've come to the right reading, this relationship isn't a relationship yet. Or if it is, as I say, it's not really gelling on that kind of heart and head connection quite to the satisfaction of either party. It doesn't mean that it couldn't. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the relationship. It just feels like some of the energy and choices around this are a bit suppressed at this point in time because we have a lot of reversals. And I think most of the reversals here are more around that. It's around energies not yet realized, not really negative energies. So your other person is used to being on their own, I think, and they recognize with this, to be fully with you, they've got to move away from being on their own. I think that they have worked very much on their wits and their cleverness in the past, and they'd like to rely on that. And so they kind of like the role where they're helping people out more than being in a relationship where they also have to be vulnerable. It makes them feel a little bit out of balance. That's a tricky thing for them. They mean well, but them being the vulnerable one is not something that they're used to, and it makes them feel like they're kind of reducing their power, their sort of like understanding of the world. But they know that they need to come out of that. So there's a very strong sort of crisscross energy happening here. On one hand, they know that this relationship is key to them not being on their own, and that it is worth looking into, that this I'm all I need and then I can help other people sort of attitude is not right. But on the other hand, it's really throwing them for a loop. You're really throwing them for a loop. Even if you're together, they're not committing because it's just running against this sense about who they're meant to be in the world. And over here for you, you know something's not quite gelling too because the High Priestess is reversed. You, in your gut, you know that something's not quite gelling and that the decisions that need to be made aren't being made. There's a kind of a sense here that you might end up in a lot of flirtation and banter. You might end up arguing with each other a lot about silly inconsequential things as an energy between you, as a way to make a connection, because it's kind of like a power struggle, pile 3, but it's not in a negative way. It's just that this person is so used to being a person almost above relationship and different to that in a way, that bringing them into who they really underneath know they need to be, but they're not comfortable with because they're not in control anymore. They don't want to control you. That's not the energy that they want to be able to control themselves. And you've really knocked them for a loop because you come across as very powerfully sensual and emotional, and they're, as I say, they're very comfortable in their head, but you don't want to just live in their head. You find that is a difficulty. You want a decision made to make it more and to reflect back to each other more than what's happening at the moment. So I think to some degree they need to get over themselves, to be honest, but they're not bad people. It's not anything like that. It's just, you have really impacted them, like really impacted them. But the way they deal with it is almost to pretend that isn't the case and to try to even be more of the leader in the relationship. But really, they're flummoxed at this point in time. So let's have a look at the alchemy of the energy between you. Okay, so there's the anxiety. The 9 of Keys straight up. This person does live in some anxiety, and because of that you pick that up. You're mirroring that to some extent. You're sort of thinking, I can feel so much here. Why is it not landing in that really emotional space? And it's because this is meant to some degree to heal some emotional wounding that's here. I would say that your significant other at some point has had a situation where their heart was really badly broken, and they really don't want to look at that. It's seen as an aberration, a glitch in the matrix. It's not them. And this is bringing up some of that, I think, and it's meant to heal that. It's meant to get to the 6 of swords or 6 of keys here, which is a kind of peace of mind between you. But I think the work is on their side, really. I'm not sure that there's a lot that you can do apart from be there for them and to the degree that you can without getting irritated by it, like have the banter and have all of that sort of thing so that they know you're there. But it's definitely saying don't make a decision yet. More is going to come out. You're going to understand more about it before you make that decision. And this is really about their dynamic. So let's have a look at some cards that are about love for your significant other, for the alchemy together, and also for you. Okay, so the effort you need to do, I think, and that's what this is saying here, is just to water it by being the friend, being with them in whatever way they seem to be able to deal with at the moment, meeting them at that mind level, having the patience, really. They're hard work. They are hard work. They're a bit of a project, Pile 3. I do think they will sort it out, actually, but I think it'll take a bit of time, and it's just that effort of nurturing it and growing it. And part of what they need to come to the understanding of, which you already have an understanding of, is that it's only in really embracing the real love connections between people that you can be truly free. They're kind of bound up in ideas about themselves and their cleverness, but the freedom comes in that peace of mind where you have the connection. They do need to grow up a bit. It's very interesting because on one level they are probably a natural leader and they are very mature intellectually, and they are a guide to many people. So they would probably take a bit of offence to that if you told them. But I think it's emotional maturity. I think they're mentally off the charts. They're really, really, really advanced on that level. And they are genuinely helpful. They might be people who are, coaches or mentors or in therapeutic areas. But often people go into that because underneath they know, even though they're not admitting it to themselves, that they need to do some healing themselves. So I definitely think there's a little bit of maturity about their approach that they have to go through, but that fits with the kind of growth energy and the effort over there. So given that, let's look at what needs to be healed between the two of you to allow that time, because I think that's all that's really needed here is time. Okay, we have cycles. So I think that's sort of saying that things go in cycles, and they're going through a growth and a maturation phase at the moment, and they're not used to being the one who doesn't feel quite on top of things and ahead of the game, and so you've got to let them go through that cycle, let that process through and give it the time, and allow yourself too, because there is a sense here of this may be one of the first relationships you've really come across that really touches your heart, because there is that sense of coming into yourself in the Red Riding Hood tale, and you need to trust, and you at this point, if you understand the cycle that they're going through, it'll be easier for you to trust that at heart they're a good person, because at heart they are. They just need to be more relaxed with the concept of being vulnerable in a relationship. So let's have a look at what each of you would say to each other if everybody was completely honest about where they are at the moment. Okay, so this is showing the same thing. You're way ahead on the emotional side of things. You wish you could tell this person how much they mean to you, but it's like you're not sure, you're not 100% sure that you should trust where they're at around all this, or whether you're seeing the relationship right. And you also get that sense probably that it could tip the balance if you talk too precipitously. So I think that you will keep your counsel around that. They say, I wish I knew then what I know now. This again makes me think that they've gone through something and they're gun shy. And whether they'll tell you about that ever, I don't know. But it just makes me think that they went through something that really threw them for a loop and that made them feel vulnerable and didn't work out. And so they think, oh, I've learned from that and I'm wise now and I know how to relate. But it's sort of papering over the wound. Both of you, though, are very connected to each other. Both of you have been wishing for someone exactly like the other. So I do think that the connection is very good. I just think it's going to take time. So given that, let's ask Spirit for one last message, like what could be some signs that you could look out for to know it's progressing and to know that you're on the right track, or that you need to course correct a bit. Got doorways. So I think that gives you a sense of journeying, of going in and out of circumstances. So I think it on a very literal level, this person needs to find the right doorway and go through that doorway. So I think it's Spirit again saying that there needs to be action around that. I also think that pay attention to where choices are there for you, the choice of which doorway to go through, how to respond to stuff. You need to make wise decisions around that, particularly around if there's, as I say, banter or discussions. What are the openings? When are there openings? When is the door opening for you pile 3 to say something or do something that can work almost on an unconscious level with your other person so that they can start to move this and so that they feel safe. Because the safer they feel, the safer you're going to feel in the end. There is a kind of a safety issue operating for both of you, but for different reasons. But there will be opportunities, and doorways are really choices and opportunities to go through, take something to another level, take an idea, that kind of thing. So keep an eye out for when those openings are there for you. But otherwise, give it time. Just let it mature. This person will catch up, I think. So I hope that that resonated for you, and I hope it made sense, and I hope that it helped. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you have any comments or thoughts on this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.